So, spawning in the top right hand position as the purple Zerg player, it is Heusa. And in the bottom left, the yellow Protoss, Kierowca. Kierowca, I believe is how you say it. So yeah, I mimic Kierowca's thoughts. This mod is indeed awesome. Super cool. I'm very excited about it to see what's going to be happening, how much more popular it gets, and I really hope ESL continue to put on more of these cups, because it is good to be able to cast some awesome things like this. Anyway, for the moment, Zerg versus Protoss. Let's talk a little bit about that. Hydra plays seem pretty strong. DTs are ridiculously awesome, especially when you can get them out relatively fast. Other things that can make it a very interesting matchup. Cannon rushes work well. Heusa is going for a spawning pool first, not something that I've seen a Zerg player do as of yet. Most Zerg players opting instead to go for the quick natural base. This map does have a relatively easy choke to hold. Probably one of the biggest things is you'll notice different on the maps for Starbow compared to on standard StarCraft 2 is the fact the natural bases don't have rams ever. That's because rams and high ground are critically important to how any army interaction occurs. The person on the high ground has the benefit of hitting their opponent 100% of the time, whereas the person attacking up, so from the low ground onto the high ground, has a 50% hit chance. So they only deal half damage in effect. That can swing the tide of battle by a massive amount, potentially losing you a fight you'd otherwise steamroll. That makes things very different in terms of every trade that occurs. So for the moment, Heusa is busy taking his natural base down, also sending a drone out. Gonna be interested to see what this does. Could be for an early third. Because hatcheries can't hold more than 3 lava at a time, getting lots of hatches up nice and early is very important for a Zerg player looking to macro. And it would appear that that is what the Zerg in this game is going to be aiming to achieve. Throws down that hatchery. It's all looking good. Meanwhile, gateway coming down there as well as a photon cannon getting added into the mix. Nexus is nearly complete, about half done, but obviously getting that early third is going to be incredibly important, because every base so much more critical to your income and has such a greater effect on it due to workers returning 8 resources per trip as opposed to 5. It makes all the difference. I know it sounds like a small amount, but that makes an incredible amount of change. The main bases as well also have an additional mineral patch compared to normal. That makes a huge amount of difference too, just on how many workers you can have. So one base economies, and each base's contribution to your economy seems far greater than in StarCraft 2. So a couple of links, just granting some map control. It's really essential that you get nice map control down in Starbow, because bases are harder to defend. For example, this third, it's got a small choke here coming up, but 2 paths in. It's a long way away from your natural base, so you've got many places to be at once. Generally, Starbow fights last a bit longer. It's worth noting too. I haven't actually stuck up my overlays as of yet to say this is best of 1, game 1 of a best of 3 rather. So I can't actually add that at the moment if I want to keep the standard tooltips up, which I am doing for the moment. Since Starbow is a new mod, obviously you don't want to hide any of the cool things that can be coming through. For example, the Cadrian Citadel. What this does is it grants the Nexus Chrono Boost, and also the ability to recall units back to it if needed. Not all of the units, but I think it's 4 it's limited to. So, a Stargate is going to be coming out. This is the first time that I have seen a Stargate in Starbow. Starbow, rather. Why did I call it Starbow? God, that was ultra noob of me. Starbow. The first time I've seen the Stargate in that, so going to be very excited to see what happens. Love this macro hatch placement. It creates a bit of a tighter wall off, keeping things nice and safe. Also got an early lair. Now that's quite interesting. Lots of Zerg players opt to use Hydras extensively, which are now on hatchery tech. The Stargate out though, and that means that a Corsair is going to be coming out. This is an agile strike craft armed with the neutron flare, which deals area of effect damage. Other things that can come out are Sentinel, Flying Supportcaster, can use the Null Ward, Glare, Temporal Field abilities. Arbiter requires the Arbiter's Tribunal. It cloaks nearby units and can use Stasis Field and Recall. Scout, basically an superiority fighter, deals damage to things, and of course Carrier. So here we go now with the Corsair. Deals damage to air only, it deals explosive damage. So this is really just going to be hunting down, trying to kill off overlords. There's no lift like Phoenix or anything like that, and I've got to love these retro engines coming down here. Very cool. Meanwhile, Aspire on its way out. This is going to be very useful for getting our Mutalisks. Scourge also play an important part. There's no Corruptors. Scourge are basically like flying Banelings. They can be merged into other things. God, that sound effect is both incredibly irritating and incredibly awesome. Oh, I think this is like giving me ear cancer. But anyway, that's really awesome. You can see that Overlords do take a decent amount of damage. Obviously, when you get more of these Corsairs out, it deals more damage, obviously. If we take a look around as well, Dragoons, Wall-Off has been completed here. Big commitment of units. Explosive damage deals 100% damage versus armored, such as Overlord, but reduced to everything else. That means these aren't actually very effective against Mutalisks, which are light, so it only deal half damage, so 2.5 damage per hit. Pretty much ineffective against Mutas. Very fast attack speed, which is why these Overlords start dying pretty fast. The Hydra Den is now getting made, which is good times. That basically means that we're going to be getting some Hydras out. Only one Hydra Den means you've got to choose either Muscular Augments or Groove Spines first. Scourge now out on the map. Flying Banelings get very nice detonations. As you can see, they deal a good amount of damage. 110 damage instantly, but they do die. They literally are Flying Banelings at the moment. They're Banelings with wings. Oh yeah, that's cool times. So, Winged Banelings. I could not think of anything more scary than that if I didn't know this was Starbow. But yeah, Dragoons coming out now at the moment. Do have the range coming down. More Corsairs in production just to start picking off any Overlords that they can find. The Templar Archives also coming through, as well as Charge being upgraded. Now, the reason Charge is very important is because Zealots deal very well up against Hydralisks, whereas Dragoons die a hideously painful death to Hydralisks. They only deal half damage to Hydras, but Hydras deal full damage to them. It doesn't work very well. And, well, for the moment, this is a fairly standard game. Glad to see Kierowca busy getting down Storm. Storm very good against Zerg, just as it is in every other iteration of StarCraft. But yeah, for the moment, we are just seeing some fairly normal stuff go down. A third base attempting to get taken by Kierowca. This is quite a safe position to try and take now. It's also worth noting that this Ram has a big influence on defending the third base because of that high ground advantage. Holding it is a lot easier than you would imagine. But it's also required that it comes down because Heusa is already on 3 bases, getting a 4th, has 2 macro hatches, second one on its way, and is doing pretty solid in upgrades. A bit behind Kierowca at the moment, but that'll quickly get changed. So Hydra is starting to chip away now at that Corsair. The Corsair has medium damage and takes 75 damage, or 75% damage from Hydralisks. So yeah, we're waiting to see exactly what's going to be coming down here at the moment. Apparently I've been corrected. Apparently Corsairs deal well with Mutalisks, but I obviously haven't checked Mutalisks closely enough, but surely they only do 50% damage, so they deal very weak against them. But I don't exactly know what Mutalisk's attack type is in Starbound. So, anyway, for the moment we've got Zealots moving forward, the Dragoons there as well, and against the low number of Hydralisks, it's very difficult for the Zealots to close up the distance. So, yeah, for the moment, the Zealots with Charge just running on in there, picking apart everything, and this is looking like a nice little push, but a lot more Hydras now in play. That should force a retreat from Kierowca at the moment. He's unable to engage there. And, well, the Nexus is now up, 3rd base there for Kierowca. And, well, everything looking pretty solid. The gas getting taken, very important. Need to get these gases. Each base only has a single Vespian Geyser. And the reason that is able to be so is simply because of the additional gas returned per collection cycle. So, that's all good. Mutalisks are now coming out. So, I guess we get to see just how well Corsairs do up against Mutas. Mutalisks, of course, can clump up indefinitely. The way pathing works is very much similar to Brood War, that if you have everything spread out and move it, they don't voluntarily clump back up. If they are clumped up, then they don't unclump. So, Mutalisks are light. Their damage they deal, they've got Glaive Worm, so it does additional damage per hit, or more bounces, and it deals 9 damage per hit. Corsairs, if there is still one on the field, are only going to do 2.5 damage per hit to Mutas, so 5 damage a second. Whereas Mutalisks will still do full damage to them. So I'll be interested to see how that goes. Corsairs are quite tanky though, sitting up there. So a few Scourge quickly decimate them. The 4th base though taking a large amount of damage as Hydralisks flank in, trying to get a nice round. Couple of Mutalisks on their way through. Dragoons are able to hit Mutalisks but don't deal that much damage. So the Mutas trying to pick this apart. The Corsair is still there. We may see more Corsairs in production. Viper Nest coming down as well. That's a new building that we're going to be seeing, of course. And with the Viper Nest coming out, that's going to really help. Now, as it all goes, for the moment the Mutalisks just pushing in, able to decimate the remaining Dragoons as they try to retreat. More Photon Cannons coming down, but we're seeing now just how well these Mutalisks clump up. You have no idea how many's there. But no spam clicking or anything like that. They just naturally stay quite close. This probe line is going to start melting. A Corsair is there. Is starting to deal some nice damage. Takes out one of those Mutalisks. The Hydras, though, are really going to aid the defense of this. But a beautiful storm comes down from Kierowca, stopping a lot of this. A lot of the Hydras attacking up onto the high ground, so only have a 50% hit chance. That's a bit of a problem. Still, though, another massive storm goes down there. So many of the Mutalisks get taken down, and that's the problem with them all being stacked up. But the 3rd is still going to die. Heusa looking fairly strong for the moment. His work count up at 45 compared to the 44 of Kierowca at the moment. Kierowca just needs to try and get that 3rd back up, because the longer he goes without that, it's going to be a problem. Lurkers now morphing in. This is the first game we've cast so far today where we've seen those. The Viper Nest up. No Vipers out as of yet. The Viper Nest is one of the coolest looking buildings. I believe that's in the StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty campaign. I think it's a cannon in that. But yeah, all in all, this is looking good. Oh, apparently the reason Corsairs do so well against Mutas is because they have a splash attack against Mutas. Okay, that's pretty cool. Lurkers are now down. Of course, Lurkers have to be burrowed, but they deal 25 damage per hit in a line out, so that's very effective. However, Storm does still hit them well. Kierowca doesn't have enough to defend this. Now he sees the Lurkers, and GG's out. That means that Heusa wins game number 1 of this best of 3.